Ah, the late 2000s. A time of skinny jeans, silly bands, and planking. But also the beginning of the reign of a new class of technology. That, of course, being the netbook. What, you thought I'd say the iPhone? Why would anyone need more than a flip phone and an iPod? You see, as the 2000s ended, the internet had pretty decisively established itself as a thing every home had, more or less. We had finally moved past loud, slow dial-up connections to fairly fast and reliable broadband internet. So now that everyone had the internet, people were starting to get frustrated by the fact that they had to be tied down to a desk to use it. Laptops were bulky and expensive, and while smartphones were quickly and eagerly developing, it was still pretty early for them. Ask anyone who was alive back then, and they'll tell you, the mobile internet experience back then was absolute garbage compared to desktop. However, wireless communication standards like Wi-Fi and Bluetooth had recently become mainstream, and many strides were being made in the efficiency of computer processors. So what inevitably came out of this market? Perhaps the most infamous type of personal computer of all time. Hi, welcome back. I'm Seth. Netbooks get a lot of hate, and for valid reasons. These mini laptops, as cute as they are, were awful to use. Terrible little processors, minuscule amounts of RAM, and slow storage. While history has not looked back at them fondly, I happen to think they're a fascinating little entry in the history of computers, and actually a bit ahead of their time. I have two netbooks with me today, both famous EPCs, representing the typical early netbook and the typical later one, respectively, and today we'll be using them to answer the age-old question: were netbooks that bad, and can anything at all still be done on them nowadays? Let's find out. Believe it or not, there was actually a time in my life where I desperately wanted a device like this. Back in the dinosaur times, when I had to share a computer with my siblings, there was nothing we wanted more than more time on the computer to play Club Penguin. I remember browsing eBay at the time, yearning for a little computer of my own. But you know, I decided instead to spend all my money on Pokemon cards like any good God-fearing child does. Years after that dream had died, I, against my will, got to actually use a netbook for the first time. See, my middle school bought carts full of this model of netbook and would wheel them out whenever we needed internet access. And man, were they just absolutely the worst. So slow. These poor little machines had been set up on the school domain so that every time a kid logged into one, they had to download a whole profile over overloaded school Wi-Fi onto the mechanical hard drive on battery power while running full Windows 7. These things just could not handle it, to the point where it actually took 10 or 15 minutes just to get to a desktop. And even once you logged in, they were still really slow, like took 20 seconds to open Internet Explorer slow. We made do with them, as kids do. My first exposure to Minecraft was actually seeing classmates load up Minecraft Classic on these things, but even with how crap they were, I must admit I was always a little fascinated by them. The computers we had at home didn't run Windows 7, the NVIDIA Ion stickers were intriguing, and who doesn't love this form factor? Speaking of the Ion, what hardware are these two eepy little computers hiding? The smaller and older one, the EPC 900, sports an Intel Celeron M single-core processor running at a whopping 900 MHz, 2 gigs of RAM upgraded from 1, and a 120 gig SSD upgraded from what would have originally only been 12 or 16 gigs. Yikes. And the graphics are some Intel integrated 915 GMS Express chipset thing. Not exactly a gamer rig, it would have been pretty meager even at the time. I do have to say though, the screen and general design of the machine are actually pretty good. Yes, it's small, but the screen is bright with good viewing angles. 1024 by 600 manages to look pretty sharp at only 9 inches. The keyboard sucks, but that's expected from any keyboard this size, but the rest of the design has held up really well. No glossy black plastic, a common design pitfall at the time, looking at UPS 3, and the machined metal accents make it look more expensive than it probably was. Oh, and it's running Windows XP, which is what it would have shipped with, and fits pretty well with the machine's power level anyway. The second machine, an EPC 1201N, runs an Intel Atom 330 with 2 cores and 4 threads running at 1.6 GHz, 4 gigs of RAM up from 2, a 512 gig SATA SSD, and that fun little NVIDIA Ion, which takes 768 megs of system RAM to use for itself. The overall design is noticeably cheaper than the last one. Glossy plastic all around, and while the keyboard and screen are bigger, they feel overall worse due to a bunch of chassis flex and really terrible viewing angles on this TN panel. There's a ton of good I/O here though. multiple USB ports, full-size HDMI and Ethernet, etc. Overall, it feels worse than the EPC 900, but there's more stuff here to actually use. I've got it running Windows 7 Pro, which is mostly just because my inner child really wanted to see it working well, but something like Puppy Linux or Windows XP is probably a better fit. Alright, now that we know what we're working with, what can these two machines actually do? Well, for the EPC 900, not much. Modern browsers, of course, don't support XP. Supermium crashes after about 15 seconds, so I had to use MyPal. It works, but slowly. YouTube is a no-go. Reddit and Wikipedia load, but are pretty slow. You might have some fun browsing old sites through the Wayback Machine or the old net, though. LibreOffice loads and is maybe usable. Google Docs loads, but is too slow to use. I might recommend legally acquiring an old version of Microsoft Office, like 2003 XP, and running that. They're perfectly functional and very era appropriate. You just might want to stay off the internet. As for games, I mean, 90s games like Doom 95 or Quake run. It'll emulate Sega Genesis games. Halo CE is too much for it though, unfortunately, and just forget about modern Minecraft. Classic Cube works okay though. As for the EPC 1201N, it's a bit of a different story actually. If you're a masochist, I could see you actually maybe getting away with a machine like this. Supermium, with uBlock Origin and H.264 installed on Windows 7, is slow but usable. YouTube videos will play at 720p or lower, and Office applications are also responsive enough. There are more gaming options too. Halo CE actually runs really well, and even Half-Life 2 loads and plays okay with settings turned down a little bit. Guess that little Ion GPU actually has something to say for itself. Modern Minecraft is not an option, unfortunately.
It's oh my god, it's going backwards? Why is it going backwards? What?
It'll open after multiple minutes of loading, but it only manages single-digit FPS, even with sodium and lithium installed. Nintendo 64 emulation borderline works? I had to tweak some settings, but I eventually got Project 64 to work smoothly enough with occasional hitches. It might vary from game to game how playable they are. Also, I couldn't get Sonic Mania to run for some reason. I think that's just a Windows 7 thing. But I could get Sonic RoboBlast 2 to run, and pretty well at that. If you know, you know.
So, yeah, unsurprisingly, these machines are not really daily drivers in 2025. When they were brand new, they might have been okay, but given the pace of tech, and especially web development back then, they were almost certainly obsolete very quickly, especially running slow mechanical storage. But even then, I struggle to call these computers useless. For general consumer applications, maybe, but the Atom tier CPUs in these computers, while slow, are still x86 CPUs. If you're running very specific, simple applications like in embedded computers or for controlling simple lighting, robotics, stuff like that, these will still work while absolutely sipping power. Hell, DankPods famously uses one to test his old MP3 player software, and I could totally see someone pulling out one of these to like tune an old car or something. Computers were made to be used, and even slow, low-tier computers like these ones can still be useful. You just need to find appropriately slow, low-tier applications for them to run. Also, I can't end this video without mentioning Chromebooks. You see, netbooks never really went away, they just evolved. The biggest problem with these machines is that they came out during a time of rapid technological progress, and back when Windows was still the only viable consumer OS to put on them. Windows is, and will pretty much always be, too bloated and slow for this tier of hardware, but Chrome OS, which is essentially just a cut-down Linux distro centered around a web browser, is absolutely perfect for them. Armed with that, good solid-state storage, and a CPU that won't be total garbage in a year and a half, and Chromebooks are actually pretty good now. I would know, I was assigned one in my last year of high school, and it was very usable. It played Cookie Clicker, it ran those tiny games I made in my first programming class, and even emulated N64 games without a sweat. So, yeah, for all you kids out there with school-assigned Chromebooks, just know that netbooks like these didn't walk, more like tripped and face-planted so that your Chromebook could run. And with that, thanks for watching, y'all. If you like this dive into low-tier technology, feel free to give this video a like or subscribe if you want to see more content like this. I was really happy with the response I got on my first video, so more content is definitely on the way. Anyway, that's all for now. Have a good one.